the Jimmy Doane Show. Hey everybody, I'm Counselor Curtis. I'm here with Jimmy Doane.
And I'm Jimmy Doane, here with Counselor Curtis.
That's right, we are here live. Today is
The 16th.
16th of September 2018. Sunday. We do this show live twice a week these days at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays and Sundays. So join us if you can at Jimmy Doane over on YouTube. If there's any problem with this video, I'm going to upload a nice fresh copy very soon, and we'll have that problem fixed before too long. But otherwise, hope you're joining us. And here we are.
And here we are. What happened?
Nothing.
We lost everything. Okay.
Well, we might not be streaming efficiently here.
Okay. All right. Well, we got some news.
Okay.
And in no particular order, as usual. The first thing I wanted to mention was Florence missed us, the hurricane.
Well, missed us.
Missed us. It nailed North Carolina and to some of South Carolina. But I thought it was interesting. For all the this was a life-threatening, big hurricane, everything.
Storm of the century.
Storm of the century, right, and everything else.
Lifetime event.
That's right. And the death toll attributed to Florence stands at 11. Now, think about it for a second. Catastrophic. Now, don't get me wrong. Every death matters, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But the whole point is, when you consider the Puerto Rican, which, was quite a lot.
Well, how many do you think that was?
Well, of course, this is the thing. We can talk a little bit about this. I listened to Scott Adams on this, and as he has the usual, you can use your facts in two different ways. One is what was directly the exact moment that the hurricane hit, death toll,
right,
plus what happened afterwards, because people were out of water, they fell down the steps, whatever it is. And electricity, the whole deal.
Yeah, it depends on what the definition of the word "in" is.
Exactly.
Did it die in the storm or as a result of the storm?
So they said that what kind of interesting is that so the thing is, the Trumpster was right. It could have been in one of the ways.
In one of the calculations. Well, that is to say, as a direct result of the storm, the deaths were measured at 64. So, at least that was the official report by Puerto Rico.
Yeah, right. Well, you believe the government.
Well, all we're saying is that, like you said, there is at least one metric by which he's correct.
Mm-hmm, right. And
so it depends on what metric you're going to use.
Right. Got a bug here.
Yeah, I got to fly. He's
great. I hope he doesn't show up on the video. Anyway, no. But still, the what's interesting, of course, is the vitriol that spewed out from the mayor or somebody down in Puerto Rico to Trump. Saying, this is what happens when this guy's horrible. Come up with these numbers.
He lied,
right? On and on.
Right.
And on.
Well, it was all over. My Facebook blew up too the same way. Oh,
really?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I got a bunch of liberal friends, and they're like, everybody threw Trump under the bus, all the way up under the bus for this, as though he had denied anybody died ever.
Right.
And certainly these Puerto Ricans had died. And look. All you have to do is Google how many hurricane deaths from Maria, and you'll see several different metrics. CBS will report on 4 different measurements they came up with. 64 was the number directly attributed to the storm. There was a number like 1,400, which was calculated shortly thereafter, given as an official report from Puerto Rico to the United States. Then there was the 3,000 number comes from a study done by George Washington University.
Right.
And it's a projected amount.
Right.
It's extrapolated.
Right.
And then there's another survey that goes home to home, and from that one they've concluded 4,600 people died.
I see.
They believe that one, or at least this article, thought that one was going to be the most accurate of the...
Well, home to home. I mean, simple fact is, as you well know, for the first month, you couldn't get to any of these places.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't have known. You had no communications, any kind.
Right. I just can't believe that Trump decided to call the storm into Puerto Rico the way that he did. And no, I'm kidding. He got blamed for being complicit in the storm, for dismantling our barriers to global warming and contributing thereby to to this storm.
Well, that's the same thing, of course, with Florence and everything else is all global warming,
Right.
or climate change, which of
And I
course.
think they kind of go back and forth now. And yeah, what people are saying is that, that's why you get these reports every time you see a new storm. It's the storm of the century.
Right.
They're trying to say that they're more intense now because you really can't say they're more frequent because we used to have more frequent storms.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we're sort of average or low average in terms
Oh,
of.
totally. Well, as of a couple of days, 4 or 5 days ago, the average. How can I put this? We have about the median of the storms, the hurricanes, is around September 11th, as far as the occurrence is concerned. Half before and half after. And so, it's not to say that we couldn't have bad ones, but at least we're on the down slope now.
Right, and we've had two.
And we've had two, right? So
That's,
I mean,
if we get two more, that's a totally average year.
right.
And so you really can't attribute anything like that to the federal
Well, I
government.
just thought, but my point was, I thought that it was interesting that for all of the flooding, apparently is rather substantial flooding inland too, 200 miles inland, big floods, overflowing rivers and everything, and 11 people. So
Right. Well, and I would point out that, of course, in Katrina, a far worse storm in a far more vulnerable area. The official number is somewhere around, I think, 1,400 or something like that.
oh yeah. Well, of course, a lot of that was because they screwed the evacuation up.
Right.
I mean, you put everybody in the stadium for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you, that's one way to
Everybody
eliminate.
to the underwater aquarium.
That's it. Oh my God.
Well, here's what I want to say about the hurricanes. There's a couple of things. When you talk about the deaths in Puerto Rico, from my perspective, the government is complicit.
Oh, totally.
And the reason that they are, not Trump necessarily, not because of deregulation of climate change, but because of the horrendous condition of the utilities
Right.
in this
The
area.
infrastructure was destroyed.
Right.
They had never bothered to maintain the infrastructure. The roads were breaking up ahead of time. I mean, if they had not done any maintenance on the infrastructure for a dozen years or more, and they were in eyeball debt, $75 billion up to their eyeballs, they couldn't afford to do it.
It's so much worse than that. If you go out to the end of the street here, you'll see a telephone pole with power pole. It's a wooden stick. It's a tree. Okay, they were invented in like 1911 when they first put the power poles up. Okay. There has been zero technological innovation because they have eliminated competition in utilities by granting monopolies to certain companies, certain groups of people, and forbidding anybody to compete against them.
Well, not only that, here in Gainesville, one of many, the utilities, all the utilities, the gas, electricity, and water and sewer are run by the government.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Well, I mean, in private utilities, you can understand why they might want to upgrade their stuff. And of course, it's interesting.
Well, it's a group that has a government-insured monopoly.
That's
You
true.
can call it whatever, private, public, whatever. It's public-private partnership. I don't care what you call it.
Yeah.
It is a legally insured monopoly, which I think we agree is the only way you could really get a monopoly.
Right.
And they have maintained it for 100 years, and it's replete throughout the United States. And now we have situations where 500,000 people were without power in North Carolina.
Right.
Now look, this is 2018. We have incredible technology. Why, when the wind blows, do we lose power? This is unacceptable. And the only way to get it back is with competition. They've got to open up the utilities to the free market, or we're dragging in terms of our power and
Well,
our
what you do
infrastructure.
find kind of interesting is the neighborhoods, the most popular neighborhoods, at least around here, are the ones that have underground utilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't save you from everything because you have to be fed.
Right.
Even that area has to be, but at least in your neighborhood, you're not going to have telephone poles crashing down.
Exactly.
And
There's
so forth.
less of an area susceptible to trees falling.
But the only little minor problem is, of course, when the power does go out in those neighborhoods, it goes out for everybody.
Okay. And
Yeah,
they're gonna-
so that's the
they're
only
gonna
little-
dig everything up. Well, look, as we know, I mean, I just think that we wouldn't even know what would be available. We would have Y-tricity. We would have things that we can't imagine if
Right.
we had allowed private companies to compete and continue to compete and offer services. You know, we talk a lot about socialism. People say, well, you like the utilities. No, we don't. We don't like that aspect. That needs to be privatized.
Yeah.
And it's one of the areas where we lag behind greatly, and the result is sometimes death. And it can be on a large scale, as in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I would imagine half of those people could have been saved if the infrastructure was 21st century over there.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it, because the simple fact is that, I mean, I've driven not in Puerto Rico, but in places like in some places down there in Guatemala and some other places where the roads literally, I mean, if you didn't have a serious Humvee type 4-wheel drive vehicle, and this is a regular named road.
Right.
I mean, and you have to crawl over this thing, and and with that kind of an infrastructure, it's not like you're going to make a hasty escape.
Yeah, no, certainly not. That's to me the bad part of the whole.
I put one
episode.
thing on our Facebook page one time. It had to do with, they were showing some particular road in Russia. It was all mud, from the rains and everything. I mean, you could unpassable. So, but I remember in Guatemala, I drove around, and even in Honduras, I drove around, and they were just the roads were just unmanageable. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I remember in Dominican Republic that it was, like you said, pothole, crawl a few feet, pothole, crawl a few feet. It was an hour's drive to get us 10 miles or something.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of the storm, my last question is, what do we or you expect the federal government to do about the North Carolina storm? I mean, these states declare national emergencies, and then they're eligible for all sorts of funds. People in California paying for people in North Carolina's homes on the beach. I mean, isn't that...
I don't, to be honest with you, if the government would be just 100% out of it, I mean, nobody in your right mind, unless you're Donald Trump, would bother to build a house on the beach, because you don't care if it blows down.
Right.
Or I remember when I was growing up on the shore in Maryland and in Ocean City and in Delaware, the houses there, the summer vacation houses, they were designed basically not to fall down, but the wind blew through them.
Right.
They stood 50, 70 years, or, I mean, I remember my aunt, I would go down there, and the house it was kind of a shambly thing, but it was a structure that, protected you basically, but it wasn't worth anything.
Right. Well, and that was interesting when we go to the resorts down in, say, Mexico. Mm-hmm. What you have is some large structures that are big pillars and things like that, and then the rest of it's palm fronds.
Yeah.
And it's like they're expecting that to blow away at some point, and to replace it, we'll just throw up some more palm fronds.
Well, when you think about it, think about the palms. Forget the fronds, but the palms themselves that are on the beach and are there for 100 years.
Yeah, well, you've seen them.
Oh yeah, I know, but they don't. And you know what's fascinating?
They know how to survive.
They have a root ball.
Yeah.
It's not like they have roots that go all over the place, and they still just bend just survive, because they've developed a way to do it. But so the fronds make sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's really great. Anyway, let's move on.
Yep.
Too much time on that. In no particular order, again, the United States this year became the largest crude oil producer, surpassing Russia and Saudi Arabia, according to preliminary estimates from the Energy Information Administration, whoever that is. Okay. So the people are trying to up their oil production, the Saudis and everybody else, but it's interesting. Conditions are ripe for a further increase in U.S. production, with sanctions against Iran due to enter the market in November, and oil prices will jump higher, even though the market has had several months to adjust to the new situation with lower supply. So the United States has a cushion of 11 billion barrels or something like that, or 11 million barrels, I guess it is, from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The point being that in the private companies here in the United States have basically ramped up production to give us the gasoline. And we've talked about this before, that this is one of the things that's kind of interesting. When you have people that will lower their price in order to, like the Saudis, to lower their price in order to put other people out of business, and then the idea is that they will raise their price to do that. So they will go in and lower their price and lose money for a little while. All the people that have that their oil is unproductive, not able to at that price, go out of business.
Right.
But one of the things that we've talked about before, apparently the break point seems to be around $70 a barrel. And once you can lose money, you can sell, your Saudis can sell it at $50 if you want. We'll buy it. And some of our fracking people might close up for a while, but as soon as the price gets above $70 or $75, they're back in business.
Yeah. Well, they knew, I believe, when they created the whole shale business, that there were going to be shutdowns. I gotta expect that they anticipated a war with OPEC at certain times, and that the Saudis would drop it. And as you say, I think the Saudis can draw oil out of the ground for something like 11 cents a barrel or something ridiculously low. They beat everybody by like half. The next best producer, Brazil or something, gets it at 22 cents or something like that. I could be making things up a little bit, but like you said, 70s is about where a large number of our shale producers start to come back online. Yeah. It's right now, I was just checking, 68, 98.
So, $69.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So they're back in business.
Yeah.
And as I have said also, as the Saudis try that little trick, our companies will adjust and get a little bit better, a little bit cheaper, and a little bit more efficient at pulling that stuff out of the ground, and will lower that $70 threshold down to 65 and then 60.
Well, they might do that, but the other thing, one of the things what you do find is that these boom towns up in North Dakota and some places like that, and I think in the sands in Canada and so forth, I mean, they have to pay people outrageous amounts of money to go up there and work.
I understand that there's people making millions of dollars.
Well, they're making people quite a bit, but the whole point is they got to know that they are on the tip of being fired. I mean, you go up there, it's not a lifetime job.
Right.
So,
well, you don't want it to be.
No. No, but my point is that you certainly, what you do is you certainly save some money.
Oh, yeah.
For when you do get fired, and then you go like anything else. You put some aside. You should, and if you don't, you're an idiot.
Yeah. And I've known people, I knew some guys who went there for the initial thing, and then some got laid off, and then went back.
Yeah.
And I know some people who are out there now and loving it, except for the hideous environmental conditions.
Right.
Like you said, you don't want that job to last forever.
No.
If it lasts a couple or 3 years and you make a couple $100,000 or something saved away, you're in a better position.
Yeah. So anyway, but I mean that is the market at work, which is great. And as I'm saying, the mythology is that a large company can come in and artificially lower the price and drive everybody out, and then supposedly raise the price, and it never works.
Right, and you know what the reason it never works is the same reason that stimulus packages don't bring jobs.
Right.
It's because it's a long-term, permanent outlook that these people are looking for, and you're not gonna hire or fire based on effervescent temporary funds.
Right.
It's just that doesn't change the market.
Well, you'd be surprised. They do that. I remember they did that with when Clinton had his we're going to give you money for more policemen, but it's only going to be for 6 months or a year or something. Well, they went and hired them all. And then they had to lay them all off.
And then they and I can see a government doing that. But if you're a business, you're not going to do that because you're not going to interview people with the concept in mind that I'm going to fire this person in 6 months.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that to your business. You're not going to create a sector of your business that is temporary, based on funding, which is basically supply, which is non-existent.
Well, one of the things you do have to realize also, for every job that the government creates, that's a job that was taken away from the private sector. I mean, that's somebody that didn't get hired over there.
Right. It's like 1.1 jobs because the 0.1 has to pay for all the transfer too.
That's right. Well, the overhead, the bureaucracy.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Okay. Moving along. In a late Wednesday statement, this was after our last show, Google spokeswoman Riva Scioto said, for 20 years, everyone at Google has been able to freely express their opinions at these meetings. Not just over email like conservative former employee James Damore, who is currently suing Google for discrimination after he was fired for criticizing the company's policies, which I think is interesting. This spokeswoman says, we're wide open, we don't discriminate, we don't do this, and of course they do. I mean, nothing was said at that meeting or any other meetings to suggest that any political bias ever influences the way we build or operate our products, Google's statement continues. To the contrary, our products are built for everyone and we design them with extraordinary care and so forth. Well, except for the fact, searching the Google images for the word idiot displays pictures of Trump and his sons.
Well, but that could be a metric based just on if enough people start to Google the word idiot and then select that as a result, then I think it'll skew the Google results over because Google believes that people are thinking that. I would imagine it reacts to.
Well, you have to, what you'd have to do is your search thing would have to be, is Trump an idiot?
Right.
Or are the kids idiots or something like that?
Right.
That's how that would come up to thing. Well, anyway, the company helped to create ads that donated funds to a partisan Latino group which physically bussed voters to vote for Hillary. And what I like is you want to talk, here's some of the comments. You want to talk about Russian interference and Russian collusion? I mean, that's one thing. Let's talk about Google founder Sergey Brin, who was born in Russia. What are his true allegiances? The country that made him a billionaire, or is he does access to a billionaire? The country that made him a billionaire, or to his motherland? Well,
he lives here.
Yeah, that's right, and he's a billionaire, so that's good. Okay, moving on. This is I thought was interesting. The House passed a bill Wednesday by voice vote, banning the slaughter, transportation, and sale and possession of dogs and cats for consumption. This is the, quote, Dog and Cat Meat Trade Prohibition Act of 2018, unquote, was sponsored by Republican Rep. Vern Buchanan and Democrat Rep. Alcee Hastings, both of Florida. Now, Alcee Hastings, of course, is the one who, I don't think he actually went to jail, but he was convicted of something down there in Miami.
Yeah, I remember some shenanigans.
Yeah, it was definitely. But he like the mayor of Washington, Marion Barry. He got back in. So his constituent didn't care about his criminal life.
Well, I am glad to learn that our legislators are hard at work on important issues that are going to make a difference in our society.
Right. Don't kill. And
let me ask you this. Did they include an addendum, a provision for butterfly protection? Because I'm very concerned about butterfly protection.
No, I think they have some endangered, that's from the Endangered Species Act. I imagine some butterflies are, but not in this act.
Okay.
And of course, the problem is, one of the little minor problems is, of course, there's an awful lot of animals that do eat butterflies. So I don't know what you do about that. Anyway, he says that they want to make it a federal law. Apparently a lot of states already make that, have that illegal to be eating cats and dogs.
This is like your donkey can't drink from the public fountain law. I mean...
Well, the bill also prevents foreign and interstate trade of cats and dogs for consumption. And what I'm wondering is, we already have a problem in eating horses, right? Now, dog food, dogs get to eat horse meat.
Yeah.
Of course, that reminds me of the most famous closing statement of all in Ally McBeal, season 1, where the guy was suing because he'd been served horse meat in a restaurant, and he hadn't been told it was horse meat, until he figured it out later. How was the meal? It was pretty good, but I mean, I'm not. Whatever. If you ever get a chance to see that Ally McBeal closing, it's really fabulous.
Well, in the end, is of course
he puts
the Constitution doesn't say we the horses.
Yeah, right. We the horses, and then of course he ends up putting a glue pot.
Right, on the jury box thing. Objection. Yeah, no way. But well, from my perspective, this is just a waste of time. I don't know.
Of course it is.
I mean, this is
a federal law.
Yeah. I don't think that we have a very large population from any other country that continues to.
Well, you look at this. One of the most famous signs
cats.
outside the Chinese restaurant is "We no see your cat."
Yeah. Well, I know.
We
No
don't have
ass.
your cat.
Yeah, and look, we joke about it, but I just don't think that there's a problem with that, and so this. I wonder they're going to campaign on this.
Yeah,
It's going on their new advertisement.
Right.
Stop.
Save the dogs.
Right.
What is amazing about this is if you can imagine, I don't care what restaurant it would be in the United States of America.
Oh yeah.
That said, by the way, special today, dog steak.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding?
Oh yeah. Or if they were ever found out, instant. Their stock would go to 0.0.
Are you kidding? The people would be out there with a sign and just save my dog.
It would be mayhem.
Oh.
So you don't need this.
No, you don't. It's just, to me, it's just ludicrous when I think about it because.
It just bothers me that they're wasting time. If somebody brought that to my desk and I was legislature, I would be like, "What are you? Get out of here! Get out! Please go take this to somewhere else, another country or something."
Oh my God. Okay, moving on. That's just so funny that they waited. Remedios Cruz joined the Marine Corps in 2015 as a supply clerk. 1 year later, she completed infantry training and in 2017 made history when she became one of 3 females to join 1st Battalion, 8th Marines Camp at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Now, Cruz is awaiting separation from the Marine Corps after pleading guilty to maintaining a romantic relationship with a subordinate. She eventually married the person who's a lower-ranking Marine, but the point is this is fraternization. Now, my question is this. If you have women in their 20s, along with men in their 20s, in an organization.
No fraternization.
God, give me a break. Are you nuts?
No looking directly at each other.
No, that's right. What are you thinking?
Look.
These we're talking about piles of hormones.
Yeah.
Raging hormones.
Yeah.
In both sexes, and you're going to keep them apart with what?
No.
I promise not to do.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
This is a fool's errand, and I don't know why they really worry about it. Now, I've never commanded a military battalion, so I can't attest to the problems of fraternization, but it seems to me as though that's just what people do.
At that age especially.
Yeah.
You look about, if you have any kind of a power structure at all, of course, as we've seen from Weinstein and all these other people, that happens all the time. And that's even with older people, but you put a bunch of young people together, I'm sorry, it's going to happen. You can't help it. Guys especially. I don't trust guys around women at that age at all. Didn't trust myself.
Yeah, no chance. No chance. But I don't see any problem with the girls in the military. From my perspective, it's getting easier and easier to fire a gun or fly a drone or a jet or whatever it is. And that is to say, it's not like you need to be a big hulking dude anymore to be an effective militant.
Well, of course, then you're going to have people like, I'm sure this crowd here are being screaming discrimination. You won't get in the foxhole and blast people, because, can you carry a 70-pound pack for a 13-mile hike or whatever? Well, no, but I can do 10.
Yeah,
But my point is that as soon as you start to put these people in the kitchen or in the reception area or even in the drones, they're going to say, but this is not fighting. I want to go out there and kill them people over in the Middle East. Well,
here's a freaking case of bullets. Go ahead and lug this across the battlefield here. Look, my thought about this is simple. You treat each individual officer as their abilities, for their abilities. Some officers are going to be short, some are going to be tall, some are going to be big, some are going to be fast, some are going to be smart, and you allocate them based on their individual abilities. Now, that does mean that a large number of women will not be in heavy physical carrying roles. And that's just because as a group, men are stronger than women. So you're going to get more of them in the group that are going to demand physical.
And you can see, for instance, I can understand, of course, when you're on a boat, and the fraternization is always a problem. I mean, when somebody comes back from, aircraft duty and she's pregnant, you got to kind of wonder what happened there. But the fact is, there's an awful lot of jobs that don't require strength on an aircraft carrier.
Right. I mean, the radio operator.
Well, even running out there and pulling the little things out from underneath the wheels or something like that.
Right.
A lot of that stuff, this business and all that.
Absolutely. I would imagine 80% of the jobs could be done by somebody who doesn't necessarily have to be exceptionally physically strong.
Right.
But 20% are pulling the boat in from the ocean and stuff like that.
Right.
And so okay,
let's all gather around and throw this helicopter overboard.
Right, something like that. I mean, there's and so I would think that the groups would just be differentiated and separated out like that. I don't see a big problem if the girls want to.
Well, until somebody sues, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, here in Florida.
That never starts good.
No, it doesn't. And this is one of those things. It is interesting because all the news, we're 50 or 45 or 50 days away from the midterm elections, and now they're talking about. I was watching down in Brazil and these other people, and they're saying there's the blue tide. Is really coming on, and we're going to take this. We're almost definitely going to take the House, and we might very well take the Senate. Good 50-50 shot or whatever it is, or 3-1 or something, whatever it is. But and a lot of it has to do with these people that have won in the primaries.
Right.
They're avowed socialists.
Right.
Now, what's interesting, Democrat Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum is leading Representative Ron DeSantis, who's a Republican, by 4 points, which is the margin of error pretty much.
Yeah.
Gubernatorial list, according to the new Florida Chamber of Commerce, released Wednesday. Anyway, the deal is this guy Gillum is just, if he becomes governor of Florida, we're doomed. He is really a Bernie Sanders, endorsed by Bernie, free everything for everybody.
Yeah, I would modify that a little bit. I would say if he becomes governor and is able to implement his policies, then we're doomed.
Well, that's right, because we do have a Republican legislature.
And you just can't, you can do a couple of things, as the governor has a little bit more power as an executive, I think, than the president does relative to the federal government. But still, got to go through the legislature for most things, and you can holler and scream about raising taxes on this, and
he's talking about having raising taxes by an extra $1 billion. Well, our budget here in Florida is around, I think it's around $80 billion, somewhere between 70 and 80 billion.
Okay.
And it's gone up every year. That's at one, I think. I think in 2008 we sloughed off a little bit, or 2009. But anyway. So that's going to be an interesting race because the guy is under some investigations.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly. I haven't followed it up entirely, but he's, from our standpoint here as being kind of libertarians, this guy is way away from us, what we believe.
Well, certainly on his economic positions, and like I said, I liked his criminal justice reform initiative, and one other, but that was about it. His immigration I liked, I think, but everything else, it's a dream. Free education, free healthcare for everybody. It's like you said, it's socialist paradise, but I think he's still just riding on the coattails of his primary win. And
I think you're right about that. I think that when people are going to pretty much come to their senses,
I don't trust those polls.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And not only that, of course, I would imagine that the people around us, we're like commie in our.
Oh yeah,
we're like. Alachua County is like a blue.
Yeah, our vote won't count.
No, ours won't count. So anyway, okay. This is an ongoing thing, and I don't know how much we have to talk about this. Family members of a white Dallas police officer charged with manslaughter in the fatal shooting of a black neighbor deny allegations on social media that some of them made racist gestures in photos posted on the internet. Now, this is the one where the girl officer was in the wrong, somehow opened the wrong apartment and shot the guy who was standing there, who was the owner of the apartment. And there's been some questions, needless to say. First of all, what was her chemical state?
Yeah.
Number one, and number two, those doors, you can't leave them open. You have to actually jam something in there. If you walk in your apartment, it automatically, like a hotel motel door, it automatically latches and locks shut. So she was trying to put the key in, but it wouldn't have fit. And so how did the door get open? And then why? Just nothing makes sense.
Yeah, and we brought this story up because, like you said, nothing makes sense. It's interesting. It's not a huge story. I don't think it's indicative of any sort of.
Well, what's interesting is that the main thing is that the people that have come to her defense, I mean, they are using all the weasel words as describing who the victim is and all this kind of stuff, and the intruder and all this on and on and on, and it's just the police. The police force people, whatever all the police people said, hey, wait a minute, this looks like might be justified, don't. Now she is free. Interestingly enough, she's free on $300,000 bond.
Wow.
And she's been arrested for manslaughter.
Right. And that was interesting to me too. And I agree. The story here, if there is one, is the cover up. That is to say, how she's been protected in the investigation. And there is something weird and fishy going on, because I'll tell you this, they issued a search warrant for the guy's apartment.
And found marijuana.
Right. But
10 grams.
Right. Which is not, that's a personal amount, I think. But the bottom line is, why would you attempt to get a search warrant on somebody who's already dead? Okay? It doesn't make any sense. In the search warrant, now here's the thing, the telling thing will be, in the search warrant application, you have to proffer what it is you're looking for and where you think it's going to be found.
Right.
So the question is, who knew about that stuff and why did they say that stuff? Because they couldn't have just seen it during the investigation of the shooting, because then it would be just in plain sight and you wouldn't need a search warrant for it. Now maybe they saw something in plain sight that indicated to them that there would be drugs or something else in the apartment, but it seems a little bit interesting that they're just going forward with this investigation, to find some drugs in an apartment and a guy that's already dead. They can't arrest the guy or anything. What are they going to do? Like, find the drugs and protect the community from the drugs or something? It's weird.
Maybe, yeah. Well, of course, that this indicates his demeanor and why she shot him. And
well, that is what the obvious takeaway is, and why it smacks of some sort of cover up or favoritism or something like that.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because I personally, I'm jumping to this conclusion: cover up.
Yeah, and I would totally say the same thing, except that they did arrest her and charge her already.
Okay.
And to me, what I would have expected in a cover-up type of situation would be we'll investigate ourselves later, and then maybe we'll convene a grand jury at some point to think about indicting her. And instead, they just went ahead and arrested her.
Yeah.
So somebody on the force there is like,
Yeah. Well, other people are saying that this is, manslaughter is a low charge, should be murder.
Well, it'll depend. We don't know what the facts are.
We don't. And of course, I suppose it'll come out. But it's always fascinating how the Blue Lives Matter people, really close ranks in a hurry.
Well, and that's why it's a story.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a story. Alrighty, let's see. The U.S. No, I don't need that. The Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday delayed a vote to advance the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court until next week. So apparently, let's see, today's Sunday, so Thursday I think they're going to have the committee, judicial committee or whatever in the Senate's going to vote him out and obviously approve, because they have the majority, and then it'll go to the full Senate, which the Republicans also have a 1 vote or 2 vote majority, but of course the pressure is on the Susan Collins and the senator from Alaska. And so it'll be, they're going to try and get them to switch their votes. But I don't see that happening. I mean, the Mitch McConnell has got a little too much. I mean, if they were to go to the other side and vote to deny,
no committees for you.
No, boy, I'll tell you, they'd be on the kitchen cleanup committee or something. So anyway, it's a lot. It's likely to receive a favorable vote from all the 11 Republicans on the panel. And so the final vote on the nomination could take place in the last week of September. And the reason for this is, of course, the first Monday of October is when the Supreme Court starts their term. And they want him on there, to do that. But as we talked about last time, the hyperbolic, I was listening to one of Slate's podcasts with Dahlia Lithwick. Did I talk about this last time? No. Anyway, she is the Supreme Court watcher. They're all liberals there at Slate, and they spent one whole hour talking about Roe v. Wade, and that was what they're all panicky about, is that it's going to be overturned, and that, because it'll be a 5-4 or whatever it is, and they've tried to drag up everything. Even they had somebody's come out from Kavanaugh's high school girl, his 11th grade, she's claiming that he held her down and closed her mouth and, in a drunken state and all this kind of stuff. And this is the Bork thing all over again. This is the Thomas thing all over again. But I mean, 11th grade, unfit for the Supreme Court. I'm not sure I see it.
They're digging around. I mean, to me, when you have to go back that far, that almost proves the guy's character. If you think about it, that means he's lived for 30 years and hasn't offended a single person since then.
Right.
Even if he did something wrong in high school, I guess he learned his lesson because he didn't do it in college or in...
Well, it's interesting that Dianne Feinstein is the one that brought this up, of course, and she wanted to make a big case of it.
Okay.
And you sit there and you're thinking, why don't you just laugh that off? I mean, that's high school jinx.
Well, I mean, look, if it were a real issue and she had a real person, but the problem is she's come out and said, I had this allegation, and all I'm going to tell you is the allegation, and I'm not going to tell you any facts about it.
The girl has come forward.
Oh, she has now?
Yeah, as of yesterday or something.
Okay.
Yeah, and they know who she is and everything, and she says, I was the one who was held down, and blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, you got to ask yourself, what's her motivation? I mean, what, on and on. I mean, is
At this
she...
point, well, I mean, you always have to get as big a picture as possible.
Still not enough to deny him.
I haven't heard it at this point, but I guess we'll see.
Okay. This is, let me see if I can get into, we're going to get into some what we call, my people used to call them human interest stories. Here's one as a kind of a little pause in our thing here. If you notice a smudge when you look in the mirror, you just wipe off the smudge. It seems simple enough, but only a few particularly clever species, such as orangutans, dolphins, share this ability with humans, and this is that they can recognize themselves. Mm-hmm. Even people who don't recognize themselves in a mirror until early childhood. And but now, this is what I thought was interesting as far as human interest. Incredibly, new research suggests that the cleaner wrasse, a tiny tropical reef fish, can recognize itself in a mirror. And what they did is they painted like a dot on the wrasse. It's like a little tiny thing. These are cleaner fish that, that clean off other fish, larger fish. And they put the mirror in there, and the wrasse comes and looks at it and realizes that this dot is on, and it's trying to scrape it off. And which is fascinating to me. Self-aware. Is scientists have long used a mirror test to evaluate whether an animal is capable of visual self-recognition. And if you go to YouTube, you can see where they put a mirror like in the jungle. Mm-hmm. And what's kind of interesting is the tiger will come up to the mirror and then go around back of the mirror.
Right.
Looking for the other. Where's that guy gone?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's fascinating to see that. The animals that do recognize, that are self-aware, that's me in the mirror, and to in this little tiny 1-inch, 2-inch.
How long
fish,
does the fish live?
I don't know.
It's interesting.
Have to look it up. Yeah, wrasse.
If he develops that skill rather quickly, like octopi or octopuses.
Yeah. Well, they only live 3 years or so.
I know, and they still figure out all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they really do. It's amazing. So anyway, I just thought it's interesting that now it's not only elephants and orangutans and some very few species that have dolphins and that kind of stuff, but these are big brain, big animals. Mm-hmm. But now they found a 2-inch, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So now another thing that we like is this is kind of one of the last things we're getting here towards the end. Mm-hmm. Maxine Waters is a leader worthy of honor. according to the National Newspaper Publishers Association. The group honored California congressman with a National Leadership Award on Friday, according to Diversity Inc. During her acceptance, Waters denounced President Trump, prompting applause from the audience and media members. Now, it turns out that this, for what it's worth, the National Newspaper Publishers Association is pretty much restricted to publishers of color.
Okay.
So that's, she was talking to her people. But I think that, when Maxine Waters, they call her Mad Maxine, but
Auntie Maxine.
Auntie, whatever. But I mean, the idea that gets an award, you just sit there and all the stuff that she's done. She's screaming out Impeach 46 and all this.
It's a leadership award. I give her credit for being extroverted leader.
Yeah.
I mean, she'll take a microphone and take a stage and get up there and speak her mind and say whatever she's going to say. And give her credit for that. Don't like what she's saying,
no.
Me personally, but in terms of initiative.
Okay, well then you're on her side. Now here's the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday authorizing sanctions against foreigners who meddle in U.S. elections, acting amid criticism that he has not taken election security seriously enough. We felt it was important to demonstrate the president has taken command of this issue and is something he deeply cares about. What's interesting about this is the order calls for sanctioning any individual company or country that interferes with campaign infrastructure, such as voter registration databases, voting machines, and equipment used for tabulating or transmitting results. It authorizes sanctions for engaging in covert, fraudulent, or deceptive activities, such as distributing disinformation or propaganda to undermine or in the confidence in U.S. elections. Now, what's interesting is that's pretty broad. And I mean, anybody that gets up there and starts to campaign
Right.
or say something, that the fake news or whatever it is, or how many people are voting, and this is so broad that even local citizens under this executive order can be hauled up in court.
Well, it says sanctions, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't think he can just sort of unilaterally pass a law with criminal penalties or anything like that.
What kind of sanctions?
Well, got to be something economic or
take your bank account.
Okay, so
put a red star on your forehead.
So it's not designed for individuals, and they'll tell you that this is not going to be used against individuals. This is designed for countries. And when we say sanctions, what we're talking about are like trade sanctions or some type of information thing.
Well,
we're going to kick out your ambassadors,
right?
Or something.
That's the individual part. I mean, they have individual sanctions against 11 or 13 Russian diplomats or something like that. I mean, there are individual sanctions.
Well, yeah. You're talking about the ones who were charged by Mueller under
right.
And he's going under a statute that was passed by the Congress.
Okay.
So I don't think that that's the type of thing. What this is this is a nifty little way, kind of like his border solution. We will now place kids with their parents when facilities are available. That's it. And this is the kind of thing where they're going to say, well, look, we took action against foreign governments meddling in our election, and we have put a stop to it. It's the greatest. And
it's the greatest we've ever done.
That's it. It's the best executive order.
Stop this now.
It's the best executive order ever.
That's right.
And and then whether or not they use it, we'll see. But I can see some kind of we figured out that Lithuania had put an advertisement, so we went ahead and sanctioned them.
It's like the United States never bothers anybody else.
The hypocrisy is just as deep as...
It gives hypocrisy a bad name.
Totally. I mean, the tar pits are more shallow than the hypocrisy that this... it's insanity that the level of vitriol that the American people have put out there. I'm shocked that there was shocked, mind you, that there was meddling in our elections,
right.
Kind of a thing.
Boy, who would think?
I can't believe it. So okay.
So they're gonna drive. Of course, it's here locally. Of course, on our Senate race here in Florida, has already been one of the participants, the Democrat Bill Nelson's fighting for his life to have a 42nd term in the Senate or whatever.
42nd.
I don't know, whatever. He's been our senator for, I don't know. He was senator before he was born. I don't know.
Right.
But he's been here forever. Anyway, but he's claiming that there's going to be he's projecting that there will be interference in the voting.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine that people were at all surprised that there's not. There's got to be a book out there that studies election interference by foreign powers in the United States over the last 50 years or something, and just every single election, there's got to be somebody who did something. I mean, that just seems...
Well, they always have the dirty tricks, which are always fun. I remember we have dirty tricks here even on our local election, and the University of Florida. In those, they do dirty tricks.
What kind of dirty tricks?
What they do is they'll campaign for the opponent, but they'll be like naked.
Oh right. Go out there.
Yeah.
Hey, we're for that guy.
Yeah, we're for that guy, right?
White power.
Yeah, that's right. I'm serious.
Right.
That's what they do. They'll go out there and just make complete fools of themselves.
Right, exactly.
In order to discredit their opponent. So it's
That's interesting.
They've been doing that for 40 years.
All right, I got a couple quick things.
Okay.
A school shooter drill in Pittsburgh
Yeah.
used live blanks.
Well, blanks aren't live.
Well, okay. What I mean is,
They went
guys with guns, bang bang,
Yeah.
loud noises. The concept was to expose the kids to to the loud noises and such. So I don't know why they just didn't pick a few of them out. Okay, a few of you guys are going to be hostages.
Yeah. This brings back
A guy in a mask is going to come in and take one of you. Okay, we're going to draw straws, but you won't know which straw you got until the masked person comes in. It's just they're off the wall.
They were when I was in the 4th grade, we hid under our desks in order to avoid an atomic bomb.
Right.
I mean, and you've ever seen, even from those days when you saw the bomb and they had the buildings up there like 5 or 6, and they blew away. Completely. And we're hiding under a wooden desk.
That's right. Well, they're going to pass out like squirt guns or something to the kids.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right. Another thing I saw this week was just I could not believe. So Jeff Bezos, richest man on the planet currently, founder, owner of Amazon, or not owner but CEO. Donated $2 billion to educational charities last week.
Mm-hmm.
And stories all over the internet decrying him as a nasty person and just putting him down left and right.
For what?
Because he didn't give more than $2 billion. Because as a percentage of his wealth, $2 billion relative to the average American's salary would be like $1,500 if you gave $1,500 to charity. Well, okay. First of all, when was the last time you gave $1,500 to charity, directly to charity?
Right.
Okay? And then second of all, it doesn't work that way. Okay. You don't get to compare. It's not a ratio thing. The man literally generated billions of dollars out of thin air. Okay. He created the wealth. He created it, which is why he has it. And then he gave $2 billion worth of this wealth to other people because he's generous, because he's philanthropic. He gave this money away, and people's lives will be changed. Thousands of people's lives will be
thousands of people's lives have already been changed because of Amazon. I mean, who doesn't have an Amazon store?
I haven't even got to that yet.
Okay.
That's level 3. You're talking about the consumers. Okay, the benefits to you and me are obvious, and that's to everybody around the country, and that's why we all use Amazon, and why he's the richest guy, and so there's massive benefits to all of us who have bought stuff on Amazon, because all the money that we saved by buying stuff on Amazon, or the time that we saved, the effort that we saved, whatever it is, goes into our quality of life, and has made us a better people. Okay, that's what Amazon does for us. But then there's also the whole level of people that he's employed. He has 500,000 employees currently, and he's made I don't know how many people millionaires.
Right.
Literally millionaires.
Well, they still complain that the people that work in some of the warehouses are on welfare.
Right. And my response to that is, so you do not want him to employ people on the lowest rung of the economic ladder?
Right.
Because that's who they are, and he's employing them even though they're on welfare. It's not because they're on welfare, it's even though. And he pays the distribution center people $15 an hour. So I don't know,
That's above the minimum. The 15 is the Bernie Sanders cutoff.
Exactly. So how much more do you want? And yet Bernie
30.
is, well, right, Bernie is all over him for that because he's rich, and I just think that people should not look a gift horse in the mouth. Everybody should think of Jeff, as far as I'm concerned, as a practical saint, and the guy has brought all this goodness into our lives, and he should be lauded heavily.
Well, not only that, what's he going to do with whatever he's worth? $100 billion or whatever it is. I mean, what's he going to do with the money? I mean, he's only he's going to be around here for another 30, 40, 50 years, and what's going to happen? I mean, assuming the company survives. But I'm reminded also of Bill Gates, who for a while was the richest man and everything. And what's he done? He's set up these foundations, and
billion-dollar foundations.
Billions of dollars.
You've got the Giving Pledge, where a whole bunch of billionaires have contracted to give away half of their wealth to these charities, various and sundry charities. And this is the same type of thing. This is Jeff Bezos doing the same type of philanthropy. This is Americanism at its best, as far as I'm concerned. And the guy should be lauded, pat on the back, and every other way, plaque, something on the wall. And because, like I said,
of course, everybody's all screaming monopoly, monopoly. Well, I got news for you. We still have bookstores here in town.
Yeah, and look, Jeff Bezos has never once in his life forced me to buy anything from him.
That's what I used to say about Microsoft, Bill Gates, because I'm a Mac user. And I say, if Bill Gates never showed up on my front doorstep with a gun and said, you have to buy,
No, we didn't buy his stuff. We pirate his stuff all the time. So that's just, I wanted to put that out there for Jeff and the people. And that's pretty much all I
got one more thing.
Okay.
U.S. health officials say teenage use of e-cigarette has reached epidemic levels and are calling for the industry to address the problem or risk having their flavored products pulled off the market. Well, of course, the e-cigarette people are saying that the vaping or whatever it is a way to quit smoking or whatever it is because it's flavored. The adults. Well, I got news flash for you. As a former smoker who tried the patches and the gum and everything, no chance. The fact is that that what's in these e-cigarettes is still nicotine.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's nicotine. And so
I was just going to say, how can they not be just full of vitamins these days? I mean, how can it not be just, it's a Vita spray, like it just enhances
Well, of course, when I was a kid growing up, you had chewing gum that was in the shape of cigarettes.
Right, yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, it had a little red dot on the end of it,
Yeah. And there was a little puff of dust. If you blew through it, it puffed out the end.
Oh, God, I tell you. Well, that was when you were, but when I was growing up, they didn't have the puff. But it doesn't matter. They had, it looked like Camel cigarettes, And so anyway, I think it had a giraffe on it instead of a camel, but it doesn't matter. The point is that the fact is that what I see as a former smoker, I can tell you right now, there's only one way to quit the nicotine habit, and it's cold turkey. And this business that people are vaping, in order to, if the industry is saying, well, this is a good thing because it keeps people from cigarettes, or it might keep smoke out of the room, but still. It's still, nicotine can't be good for you. So anyway, that's.
Yeah, I'm curious about those things. I see people, I guess vaping is the term, and they have
little stores devoted to this.
Right, and they have all kinds of different flavors of
Well, it says
stuff.
here the San Francisco-based Juul, Juul, which commands over 60% of the e-cigarette market, said it is working to prevent underage use of its products, but added that flavors can help adult smokers quit cigarettes. Well, BS. I'm
calling BS on that.
Yeah, and also, why are it's already illegal to sell these things to kids under 18, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I would imagine if there's nicotine in it, especially.
Yeah.
Well, my thought in terms of the weaning off, perhaps you could have a system whereby you bought a series of graduated.
Not going to work.
Well, I don't know. I never smoked cigarettes, so
Yeah, but I can tell you from personal experience and from witnessing other people, there's only one way to do it, and that is you quit cold turkey and you put up with the nicotine dreams for 3 to 6 months. You don't have the physical part of it goes away pretty quickly, like a couple of weeks. But after that, you have. I mean, I used to wake up for the first year after I quit smoking. I would wake up with a nightmare, thinking that I'd had a cigarette.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is normal. And this is the same thing for people that quit drinking. You wake up literally for a year afterwards, and
think you fell off the wagon.
You fell off the wagon. Yeah, exactly right.
Interesting. Well, okay. Actually, one more thing.
Okay.
It's just a little aside. I saw an interview with a congressman from Hawaii, and she said that in the last couple of weeks, during the omnibus funding bill for our military, that there was a tacit authorization for the use of military force versus Iran buried in the spending bill, an AUMF. And I can tell you that they've been toying with and implementing these AUMFs, these authorization for use of military force, for the last couple of decades. That's how we got into the war with Afghanistan and Iraq,
right,
without actually declaring a war.
Right.
It's because there was sort of a war declared because force was authorized.
Right.
But it's a little different and a little surreptitious, and they just kind of slid it in there, and the military-industrial complex lives on.
That's
so.
it. Yeah. The deep state.
That's it. So, all right, that's all I got.
Yeah, we're done.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody, if you did. And if you had any issues, like I said, with the stream, which I know you did because I can see here. So I know you're watching this on the newly uploaded copy, and but we'll get this problem fixed soon. So tune in Wednesdays and Sundays at 4 o'clock on YouTube at Jimmy Doane, Doane. And